let's talk about why details matter. Okay, you'll hear there's so many different arguments out there. I mean, high carb, low carb, intermittent fasting, detoxes, counting calories, using hand portions, all of this different stuff, weighing your food, not weighing your food. It's all about habits. It's all about calculation, thermodynamics. Like there's all these different things, right? Well, why have those become so popular? Right? Well, one, they work, right? They work. Nobody's going to say that one doesn't work. The thing is, not everything works for everybody all the time. While the results might exist temporarily, and if our behaviors don't support the diet or the program that we're on, it's going to be very challenging. But what we need to keep in mind is that we don't live in the world that we were originally designed to live in. And what does that mean? So follow me here for a second. Imagine that we live in the Garden of Eden. Okay, everything is there for us. We have all of the fruit, we have all the proteins, we have all the vegetables, we have all the fats, and they're all whole foods. Okay, they're all whole foods. Got plenty of sunlight, sun goes down, we rest. Like things are pretty good, right? Now, let's introduce artificial light, starting with fires and then light bulbs and so on. Let's introduce processed foods or hyper-palatable foods that we are designed to consume more of in higher quantities. They're more calorie dense, so we're getting more energy with every bite we consume. And next thing you know, there's so many changes in the things that we're consuming and in the environment that we're living that we've lost track of how we're supposed to be, the foods we're supposed to eat. Now, when we think of different foods, and we think of how we feel regarding different foods, and this has nothing to do whether you like vegetables, whether you like fruits, whether you like lean or fatty proteins, whether you like any of that stuff. Chances are, if we go out and eat a big old burger and a bunch of fries, or some pizza and some beer, or just something really heavy, any sort of fried foods, within, a reasonable amount of time, short period of time, we're going to feel kind of tired. We're going to feel a little bit more sluggish, right? Versus if you have fresh fruit and vegetables, a salad, lean meats, some cold water, warm water, whatever water you like, flavored water, and you have that, even just in your mind, you could probably imagine, if you've had that before, feeling a little bit better, right? You may have felt like you missed out on something, but you feel better, right? Even if it's just temporary, and then maybe you go have the other stuff later. But when it comes to the food choices we make and the hyperpalatability, most of us aren't going to crave the things that are really good for us, generally speaking. So let's talk about why details matter really quick. In the world we live in, our sleep is less, our hydration is less, our stress is high, our processed foods are high, our whole foods are less. So what can happen there? Well, we get thrown off. Our energy becomes low, so we try to consume more to wake up. We have more caffeine, and we fall into a cycle of not knowing of what feeling good actually feels like. We lose sight of that. We don't know what that feels like. So when we start thinking about the details, some of the details we want to consider are, what are we really taking in? Both mentally, emotionally, physically. What are we eating? What are we consuming in terms of watching and reading? What are we doing for distraction? Why are we staying up so late? Why are we not getting the sleep or rest that we need? And let's say there's situations or circumstances that don't give us that opportunity. Let's say we have to work 2 jobs, or let's say that, we have somebody sick in the family, or we're sick. There are going to be circumstances that exists, and we need to be aware of that as a variable so we can start making better decisions around that. So the details come down to each of the components, and we're just going to start with calories because that's very easy, and it's a nice topic of conversation that everybody has an opinion about. One of the reasons details are important, like, say, counting calories, or just going to get blood work done, right? Checking blood pressure, things like that, the details, is because we have to measure what's the output. what's actually going on via the input. So let's say that I feel, by all reasonable standards, I don't eat much. Don't eat much. And that could be true in terms of volume. Let's say we have a coffee in the morning, we have, a handful of snacks, we have some bread and butter, we eat maybe a small sandwich or something, and then we have a snack at dinner time, maybe another coffee as we go. And as we begin to look at that in terms of details, while volume might not be very much, the density of calories can become incredibly high. So what we want to do is begin to look at what are we actually consuming. It doesn't mean changing anything. It doesn't mean you got to log and weigh everything that you do. But it is a good idea to kind of get an idea of what it is that we're putting in. Because if we're exercising or we're considering making a change, maybe that change hasn't been made yet, how do we know what to change? How do we know what to change? If we work really, really hard and we're not seeing the changes we want, maybe it's not the output, but it's the input. Okay, so when we begin to look at the variables, let's ensure that we're looking at the right ones. That's the nutrition side. When we start talking about our exercise, again, when we start looking at the details of things, there's so many influencers, there's so many people showing incredible things. I love Instagram influencers. I love people on YouTube. I love all of it. Now, is it because they do it right? No, not necessarily, but it is also because they inspire a lot of people to want to make better life choices. And I think that's an amazing person to be at whatever level that becomes or is for that individual. For the people that look up to them, though, we're going to get into the state of comparison. And what often happens is we also go into a state of delusion, meaning if we see somebody squat and we don't know how to squat, maybe squatting to us is just lowering our head. When we do a push-up, maybe it's just bending the elbows. When we do a bench press, maybe it's a limited range, it's not properly aligned. So in those details and measuring the details, it's much more than weight. It comes down to range of motion, rate of perceived exertion, reps in reserve. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can look at in terms of measuring that outside of just a standard range of motion and weight, okay? So as wherever you're at in your fitness journey, one of the things you want to consider is what details are you looking at? And are they limited? If we only look at how we feel after a workout or what the scale looks like, those are two variables among dozens of variables that we can look at on a regular basis. So my suggestion to you, if you're looking to make a change or if you're in the process of changing and you've been looking at the same variables for some time and you haven't seen the changes you want, perhaps it's time to introduce some more variables. And that could be whatever it is for you in terms of your goals. So if you're a runner, that could be your tempo, your breathing, exertion, time, things like that. Maybe how you feel at the end. If you're lifting, instead of just weight, it could be range of motion, reps in reserve, rate of perceived exertion, time under tension, a variety of different things that you begin to look at. If it's your food, it could be things along the lines of calories, satiation, how do you feel? How long are you full? What's your energy like? What's your rest like? What are your cravings like? Things like that. So if you have questions about these and different variables, feel free to get engaged. Let's start a conversation. And what I can do is I can start preparing some lists as well if there's a need or a desire. There's no point in me just creating something for no reason. But if you have questions about it, feel free to get engaged, ask some questions, and I'll do my best to answer those the best way we can. But the purpose of this is begin to pay attention to the details of the parts of the whole, because the more details you have, the more progress you can make. And that's a very powerful position to be in without trying to lift more and eat less. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.